Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, sponsored by the Indiana State Police Alliance, a subsidiary of Indiana State, or the Cops for Kids, a great charity that they run out there at the Indiana State Police Alliance. I am your host, Sergeant John Perrine from the Indiana State Police Public Information Office, and I have two very special guests. First, the man that needs no introduction, Captain Dave Burston.
Oh, yeah, right.
Chief PIO for the Indiana State Police. Thanks for coming, Captain.
Here's the man that needs no introduction.
This man
right
is
here.
a legend in Central Indiana. We're so honored to have him on his show. Big Joe Stasniak. Thanks for coming, Joe.
Legendary status. I don't know about that, but thank you. No, glad to be here.
You know, you had a career, in the 90s and kind of led you across the country, but you chose Indiana. What made you choose to live and your career or live your life here in Central Indiana?
You know what? It is funny that, my wife and I both went to Ohio State. So being Columbus, Ohio people, both born in Ohio, we were kind of Western Ohio folks. I was right around Cleveland but had a lot of family in Western Ohio. We really weren't that far away. And so when I got the call to play here, we stayed 4 years, absolutely loved it. Job path, really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. We both had business degrees, marketing degree, and just come to find out, Bob Lamy gave me an opportunity to go on the radio and do a segment with him every week and during the season, and found out I was using my marketing degree every day. Every time I did that, you're using your marketing degree. So it kind of stuck. No better offers. Talked about going back to Columbus and living. A lot of our friends and everything were there, but we found the 3-hour commute was pretty easy to make if we needed to, and Mom and Dad were still in the Cleveland area, so it was so easy to get back and forth. We just decided to stay, and his cost of living was fantastic. Downtown life was really kind of neat. You could still get property. I got 20 acres in Brownsburg. Love the Brownsburg area, and close to an airport. It's just everything was just perfect. Kind of fell into place.
Well, we're happy to have you as an adopted Hoosier for sure.
And it's proof that good things happen to good people. And you've always been.
Oh, you're talking about my wife, so
yeah, well, she's a saint married to you, and I know Pam, so she's a saint. No, it's just you've always been the consummate professional, and you're not making this a love fest, but it's always been you were great representation when you played for the Colts. You've had a great career here with Emmis, and it's just always been a pleasure to work with you, Joe.
Well, thanks, Dave, and getting to see David in church on Sundays. It's
Well,
we share a pew together.
Long-time friend of the state police, but first-time guest. So we're hoping that we can continue this relationship and have you on the show more often. So I want to talk a little bit. We'll talk football a little and some other things. But first, when you watch a football game, whether that be a Colts game or any other game, do you find yourself watching it as a fan or more as an analyst?
Definitely Colts games critically, because that's kind of what I get paid for, and I can watch it. If I started watching as a fan, because I kind of, it's funny because I am different, because when I watch my college games on Saturday, man, I'm a fool. I'm yelling, I'm screaming. I can't, walking around, whatever. Just get so upset and so irate when bad things happen, and then the high five and then the texting, what everybody does on Saturday. Sunday, I'm a little bit more under control about it, and just because I think it is the professional aspect of it. These guys are expected to do their things that other people don't do, and when they don't do that, it really gets me frustrated. So this last Colts game was kind of that way. I think even after, several days here, a couple of weeks, I'm still trying to come down, after that disappointment. But then, you realize it was a heck of a season, and these guys overachieved and did some great things. And like you were just talking about, Dave, they did great representation, here at the state of Indiana. They do in the community what you'd expect them to do. There's just it's a great team to rally around. So I find it hard not to be a fan, because I do, when you go in the locker room and you get to know these guys, I do like them an awful lot. I love this team. I love Frank Reich and the coaching staff. So it's hard not to be a fan in that way, but you do have to, when you got to be critical, you do have to back that away a little bit.
And through tragedy, Captain Burson and I had an opportunity to kind of get to know Chris Ballard and some of the other administration. I'll tell you, they are just the real deal. When Edwin Jackson was killed, heartbreaking, but I'll tell you,
horrible.
Our opportunity to build relationships with them from that, you just learn that behind the scenes, these are just good people. It's a good core group of people leading these young impressionable athletes.
Right, and they're the exact same thing as we are. I mean, they are fans. They want to win bad.
Yeah.
It's not one of those things where they're collecting $1 million paychecks or anything like that. These guys really want to win, and they want to do it the right way. And that's why, people have, views of Jim Irsay one way or another. I think Jim Irsay is one of the best owners that you could have. And I don't know Jim from a personal level, know him obviously from being around. There's no more dedicated guy to winning than a guy like Jimmy Irsay. And then if you look at his interview process, it's important to get the right people. So you get Jim Caldwell's and Tony Dungy's and these kind of guys that are not only men of faith, but are stand-up guys that you can, trust in. That's what Jim's all about. And so Chris Ballard is 100% that same kind of guy. Bill Polian, was that kind of guy. So it's good people do win out in the end. I think we all agree about that. That's one of the things, and I think good fan bases should have the same thing. And so I think we're reaping some early benefits already of what Chris Ballard's been able to do putting this team together.
All right. Well, we're closing in very quickly here on the biggest game of the season, one of the biggest sporting events of the year, of course, that draws the most attention. So when you watch the Super Bowl, is that an opportunity for you to kind of just sit back as a fan and just enjoy some good football? Or
I gorge. It's a little bit about the game at that point,
but it's more about the atmosphere, right?
It is about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
It takes me back. I was fortunate enough to play in 2 of them, cover 2 more, as a member of the Colts media staff. It really is one of those things where you just kind of takes you back a little bit. But I just remember in playing the games, it even took me back to high school because we played on the natural grass. And, when you're in college, you don't play, it's all AstroTurf. And then a lot of the games, we were playing on were AstroTurf fields and whatnot. And I just remember, going down to Miami and walking around on that field, the grass, the smell of grass in the evening, 6 o'clock at night, that was the first thing that came to mind. The second thing was the smell of popcorn. It just took me back to Friday nights and how cool that was.
That's funny you mentioned that because I know that I'm a fan of your show, but I listen, football, but there's something you probably know as well as football, and that's food.
Well, I am a bit of a snack aficionado. I can plan Super Bowl parties if you like. It's just as much important. And when you talk about a Super Bowl, because it is a gathering of everyone, and it's not just buddies, it's buddies and wives, and it's kids are involved in this thing too, that it is important to have a good amount of food around for folks too. And it's a chance for you to try. And I'm not a big, the plate to me for a Super Bowl is to hold a bunch of finger snacks.
Yeah.
For a football
game. You're not looking for a meal.
I don't need a prime rib. Yeah. I don't need a baked potato. I don't need anything like that.
You wouldn't turn it down, though, would you?
I would not. I would not. And I would put you on the list to go back to your house the next year.
He wants the prime rib on the toothpick.
Yeah, that's right. Anything
with
quick,
the horseradish sauce.
Quick, easy, because you got to keep your other hand, open to have a cocktail or something like that, or if you're the designated driver, whatever you're going to have there. But it's important for that gathering to have good food. And that's like, because it's an indoor tailgate to me, so as a football fan, if you've been going to all these Colts games or going to high school games, going to college games or whatever, to me, you have to have tailgate food.
Awesome. So let's say we're hosting a Super Bowl party and Big Joe Stasiak is #1 on the guest list.
Oh, boy.
What do you expect when you walk through the door to my home at my Super Bowl party?
Open bar.
Open bar. All right.
I don't want to pay for a drink.
That leads us to Captain Burston's message here.
So now, how many drinks would you have at that open bar, and who would be driving you there?
Well, we would probably be going I wouldn't be going alone. Pam would be going with me, and we would have a plan ahead of time, and typically it's you go ahead. But it really is funny when you start, and you invite me over at noon for the 6 o'clock kickoff, the 6:30 kickoff, because
we want you to sample everything to make sure it passes inspection.
Exactly. So I'd start off, and even if I am the designated driver, if we're showing up, long enough ahead of time, I'm gonna have a beer, whatever. And it's funny because my wife and I, we'll have it set ahead of time. No, you go ahead. No, I'll go ahead. And typically neither one of us end up overindulgent at all. Wow. And it's just kind of funny how it goes down sometimes. But no, typically, Pam is, she's the one that's more involved in the game. She may be more fan-like than I am when you get into the games.
So what you're saying is that's part of your plan. If somebody's going to be consuming alcohol it's not just show up and wing it. It's before I get there, I'm planning.
Well, what I've learned from this is that Pam will be driving Joe there, dropping him off 6 hours before kickoff.
Yeah.
And then she will come back later. Joe will be 3 sheets to the wind. She may have a beer, a glass of wine, and then she'll be, well, several of us will have to roll them into the car and take them. But we fun aside, we bring up a lot of important points. Have a plan in advance. Have a designated driver. Use Uber, use Lyft, use a taxi. If you're staying with really good friends, they may have a place for you to spend the night. But the last thing you want to do is overserve your guests if you're hosting the party. And if you're a guest, you don't want to overserve yourself. And you may not know when you've passed that limit. And it comes back to, and you and I have participated in alcohol workshops before, and when we talk to people after they've had 1, 2, or 3 drinks, and they say, I feel it, I wouldn't drive, I'm not safe. And the reality is they're barely a .03. They're not even halfway to the legal limit. You talk to them as they drink some more, now they're at or above the legal limit, over .08. And you say, how do you feel? Well, I feel fine. I could drive now. And that's the diminishment of your faculties and not being aware.
Well, it's 2019. The options are endless.
Yes.
That you don't have to drive home. Never was it an option to drive, but now it's cheap. Uber, Lyft, cab, friends, family, doesn't matter. It's cheap. It's much cheaper and easier than a DUI.
It is inexcusable to jeopardize your life and the lives of other innocent people. And if you make that decision, the least worst thing that can happen to you is that we stop you before you crash and you spend the night in jail. You spend about $10,000 or $15,000 on an attorney. You lose your license. But you kill somebody, you're going to go to prison.
Yeah.
You're going to be there for several years.
Yeah, it's heartbreaking. And again, that's just one side of this. Of course, we want people to enjoy these Super Bowl parties, and we're not telling people, hey, you can't drink or you don't drink. You're all adults. You can make adult decisions, but do so responsibly. But let's get back to the food, because there's a long debate amongst me and my friends about chicken wings. Mm-hmm. Boneless versus bone-in. What does Joe Stasiak prefer?
I'm a boneless guy just
Bingo.
because I like to totally consume everything.
Yeah, you don't want to leave anything behind.
Exactly. And then to me, the bone-in is a little bit messier.
Yeah.
And it's harder if you're at somebody else's house. You're touching couches and chairs and things. You just don't want to do that. I don't want to slop it on myself.
Mm-hmm. Unless you don't like the person whose house you're at.
Well, or hit the dog. Here you go.
Yeah.
Clean this up.
Yeah.
I am more of a boneless guy just because I've never been one to throw away food. So even throw away bones was always hard for me, John.
Yeah. Well, I can relate. Now, what's 1 or 2 things that you just can't walk by? I mean, you're filling your plate at this Super Bowl party. Gotta have.
Well, at the end, you got to have something chocolatey.
Okay.
So I need to have chocolate. Now, that's a whole nother can of worms as far as what you want to make, because you can make football-shaped things. You can make cupcakes or whatever with little football stuff on. You want to do something
Got to have the motif with the football. It's got to all tie together.
Yep. But I gotta have the chicken. No, so it is a chicken tender kind of thing is what I'm looking for first. You got the nice little ribs or something. That's great too. I won't pass those up.
Meatballs, you like the meatballs?
Love the meatballs.
That's an easy thing. You throw them in the crock pot and they sit all day.
It's all about the sauce.
Now, do you pace yourself so that you can eat the entire game, or do you, by halftime, you're pretty full?
I pace myself. I go hard at the beginning and hard throughout.
Okay.
So
all right. So if you're inviting Joe over,
I'm
make
doing
sure
a
you've got
sprint
plenty
for 6 hours at least. But it is important there. That too is pacing yourself when you drink. Don't eat and drink both. And when you end up doing that, you are going to be more responsible. Just because you're going to get full, you're not going to feel like drinking it. It just makes more sense to do it that way.
He tackles food like he used to tackle players.
Yeah. But anyway, we've got about a minute left, Captain. You got any closing thoughts? Super Bowl parties, what's going to happen at the Burston household on Super Bowl?
We will do 1 or 2 things. We'll either just stay at home and watch quietly, or we will maybe go. We have a couple of friends that are talking about putting something together. I don't think we're going to do anything. Our party time at the Burston house is in December, and we host some events during that, and then we wrap it up.
Great. Joe? Final thoughts about 10 or 15 seconds?
It's always a last Sunday, a late Sunday game. So if I'm having a party, I want people out by halftime. So I go other places so that I can leave. I got kids that got to get up to school. I'm up at 6 a.m. to get them to school. So I just pace yourself and don't make it a long night.
Maybe we could move the Super Bowl to Saturday night. What would that take?
Much better idea.
Yeah. Well, Joe Stasiak, thank you very much for coming on. Captain Burson, always nice to have you. You have been listening to the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids. Roadshow out.